a football manager is arguably the worst career choice possible if you want job security. Indeed, soccer coaches are sacked on a regular basis as clubs across the world make changes in order to try and achieve success. Across Europe's top leagues and beyond, head coaches are either sacked or choose to resign frequently throughout the season, with the length of a manager's stint getting shorter and shorter with each passing year. Article continues under the video. In fact, the next manager to be sacked is a vital part of football transfer news, as the impact of a managerial change can often make a huge difference both on and off the pitch. Furthermore, patience with managers grows ever thinner with each defeat a team suffers. Trendingus even makes official transfer announcement. 215 people are reading this article. Ojvan makes official transfer announcement. The 2024-25 European season is now into the closing stages, and a long list of managers across the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga and Ligue 1 have been sacked this campaign. Below, football transfers runs through every manager in Europe's top 5 leagues who have left their posts this campaign. The first big managerial appointment of the English season came on October 16 when it was announced that Thomas Tuchel was the new permanent head coach of the England national team. Tuchel replaced Gareth Southgate, who resigned after Euro 2024, with caretaker boss Lee Carsley returning to the under-21s. Tuchel's contract started from January 1, 2025. Erik ten Hag became the first Premier League manager to be sacked on 28 October, when he was dismissed following Man U's 2-1 loss against West Ham United. After Ruud van Nistelrooy was caretaker for a few games, Ten Hag was permanently replaced by former Sporting Lisbon manager Ruben Amorim on November 11. Leicester City manager Steve Cooper was the second Premier League boss to get the boot. He was sacked following a 2-1 loss to Chelsea despite sitting outside of the relegation zone. He was replaced by Van Nistelrooy, who did not have to wait long to get a new job. Then Wolverhampton Wanderers relieved Gary O'Neill of his duties after their 2-1 loss to newly promoted Ipswich Town. There were chaotic scenes at the end of this game with fights breaking out on the pitch between staff and players. Vitor Pereira was appointed as Wolves' next manager. Russell Martin lost his job on the same day, with Southampton pulling the trigger following a humiliating 5-0 defeat to Tottenham Hotspur at St Mary's. The newly promoted side were rock bottom of the Premier League at the time, having only won one of their opening 16 games. He was replaced by Ivan Jurk. West Ham's Julen Lopetegui was next on the chopping block on January 8 after he endured a dreadful start to the season despite a summer outlay of over €140 million. The Spaniard was replaced by Graham Potter. The following day, on January 9, Everton announced they had parted ways with Sean Dyche. He was replaced by former Everton manager David Moyes. The next managerial departure came in April, with Ivan Juric becoming the second Southampton boss to leave St Mary's following confirmation of their relegation back to the Championship. Ruben Amorim is under heavy pressure at Man United and his position could be at risk at the end of the season. The same is the case for Tottenham's Ange Postecoglou, with his team only a few places above the relegation zone. It now seems almost certain that Postecoglou will be sacked in May when the campaign ends. In 2023-24, only 3 Premier League managers were sacked during the season: Paul Heckingbottom, Sheffield United; Steve Cooper, Nottingham Forest; and Roy Hodgson, Crystal Palace. Heckingbottom was replaced by Chris Wilder, Nuno Espirito Santo took charge at Forest, and Oliver Glasner was chosen as Hodgson's successor. Julen Lopetegui left Wolves before the season had even started, while Mauricio Pochettino, Roberto De Zerbi, Jurgen Klopp and David Moyes all departed at the end of the campaign. The first La Liga manager to be sacked in the 2024-25 season was Luis Carrion, who was given his marching order on October 8 with Las Palmas bottom of the table. He was replaced by Diego Martinez. Paulo Pezzolano was next to go on November 30 at Real Valladolid, who themselves were bottom at the time of his sacking. He was succeeded by Diego Coca, who lasted only until February 17 when he was sacked with Valladolid still bottom. Coca was succeeded by Alvaro Rubio. On December 2, Alaves sacked Luis Garcia and replaced him with Eduardo Coutet. Shortly before Christmas, Valencia pulled the trigger on Ruben Baraja, with the team languishing in 19th after winning just 2 of their opening 17 fixtures. He was replaced by Carlos Corberán. Xavier Garcia Pimienta was sacked by Sevilla on April 13 with the club struggling in 14th. He was replaced by Joaquin Caparros. Carlo Ancelotti's future at Real Madrid past the end of the season is in doubt despite his continued success. In 2023-24, 11 La Liga managers were sacked, with Villarreal, Sevilla, Granada and Almería all going through 3 separate head coaches during the campaign. Cadiz, Rayo Vallecano and Celta Vigo also sacked managers last season. Roma's Daniele De Rossi became the first head coach of the 2024-25 Serie A season to be sacked as he was handed his dismissal on September 18 after failing to win any of the first 4 games of the campaign. Ivan Juric arrived as his replacement on a contract until the end of the season with an option to extend if Roma qualify for the Champions League. However, Juric was sacked after less than 2 months in charge after a dismal spell with the Italian giants which saw them just 4 points above the relegation zone. With Roma in complete crisis both on and off the pitch, the club turned to Claudio Ranieri. The 73-year-old Roman returned on November 14 as Roma's caretaker manager until the end of the season. It was his 3rd spell at the club, at the age of 73. Luca Gatti was sacked by Lecce on November 9 after a terrible start to the season, which saw the club struggling in the relegation zone at the time of his departure. He was replaced by Marco Giampaolo. Alberto Gilardino was axed on November 19 with Genoa and during a disastrous start to the season on and off the pitch. Patrick Vieira was announced as his replacement the following day, reuniting with his former Nice pupil Mario Balotelli. Monza boss Alessandro Nesta was the next in line as the Italy legend was fired on December 23 following a 2-1 loss to Juventus that left his side rooted to the bottom of Serie A. He was replaced by another former defender, Salvatore Bocchetti. But Bocchetti failed to improve Monza's fortunes and was sacked himself on February 10, with Nesta brought back to the club. Nesta also failed to make an impact on his return with Monza almost certain to be relegated at the end of the season. AC Milan sacked Paulo Fonseca following a 1-1 draw with Roma on December 30, with the Portuguese embarrassingly having to confirm the news himself while speaking to reporters after the game. He left with the Rossoneri languishing in 8th. He was succeeded by former Porto manager Sergio Conceição, who immediately won the Italian Super Cup in his first 2 games at the club. Paulo Fonseca was sacked by Milan. Fabio Pecchia was sacked by Parma on February 17 after a dismal run of form left them in the relegation zone. He was replaced by Christian Chivu. Juventus sacked Thiago Motta on March 23 after a disappointing season, with the Bianconeri at risk of missing the Champions League. They initially wanted to keep him until the end of the campaign, but changed their mind halfway through the March international break. Former Juventus player and assistant coach Igor Tudor was hired to replace Motta until the end of the season, returning to Serie A after his strange three-month spell at Lazio the previous year. Tudor is unlikely to be appointed permanently at the end of the campaign. AC Milan's Sergio Conceição is certain to be sacked at the end of the season as the club are unlikely to qualify for the Champions League. Only 5 managers who started the 2024-25 season were coaches of their clubs in the season before. In 2023-24, 14 Serie A managers departed, including José Mourinho, Maurizio Sarri and Massimiliano Allegri. Napoli were arguably the biggest story of the season as they went through 3 managers in a dismal campaign that saw them finish 10th after winning the Scudetto in 2023. José Mourinho was sacked by Roma in January. VfL Bochum's Peter Zeidler became the first Bundesliga manager to be sacked during the 2024-25 campaign. The club opted to part ways with Zeidler and sporting director Mark Leto following a crisis meeting on October 20. Bochum were rock bottom of the Bundesliga table upon Zeidler's departure, with only 1 point from their opening 7 games. He was replaced by Dieter Hecking. Pellegrino Matarazzo was then sacked by Hoffenheim on November 11. With the club languishing down in 15th place in the German top flight. He was replaced by Christian Ilzer. Bo Svensson was sacked by Union Berlin just before the end of 2024, with former striker Stefan Baumgart taking his place. The biggest casualty of the season so far has been Nuri Sahin. Following a 2-1 Champions League loss to Bologna, the Borussia Dortmund boss was let go by the club, which cited his disappointing results. BVB were 10th in the Bundesliga table at the time of his departure. Niko Kovac replaced Nuri Sahin on February 2 after Mike Tulberg had been in temporary charge for just over a week. In late March, Marco Rose became the next Bundesliga manager to lose their job, with RB Leipzig sacking him after only 1 win in 11 league matches. Zsolt Lowe was hired as interim coach. In 2023-24, 8 Bundesliga managers were sacked, including Union Berlin legend Ursula Fischer, who left the club in November after a torrid run of form. Augsburg were the only German top-flight team to sack 2 managers last year. Montpellier head coach Michel Derzakarian was the first Ligue 1 coach to be sacked this season following a 5-0 home loss against Marseille. He was replaced by veteran Jean-Louis Gasset, who returned for his 3rd spell at the club. He did not turn around fortunes and he was sacked with the club in 18th on April 7 to be replaced by Zoumana Kamara. Rennes coach Julian Stephen was the next to be sacked on November 7 as they struggled in 13th place. He was replaced by veteran former Chile manager Jorge Sampaoli. But Sampaoli didn't last long as he was sacked himself on January 30 and replaced by Habib Bey. The 3rd manager to lose his job in Ligue 1 was Saint-Étienne boss Olivier Dalloglio, who was jettisoned by the newly promoted club after they suffered a 2-1 loss to Toulouse in what was their final league match of 2024. He was replaced by the Norwegian manager Erik Horneland. Lions coach Pierre Sage was controversially sacked on January 28 amidst serious club problems off the pitch, with Paulo Fonseca taking his place. Fonseca's future at Lyon is already in doubt after he was suspended for 9 months for intimidating referee Benoit Maillot during a match between Lyon and Stade Brest. On February 3, Luca Elsner was sacked by Reims and succeeded by Sambadi Awara. In 2023-24, 8 Ligue 1 managers were sacked, including Laurent Blanc, Fabio Grosso, and Will Still.